So welcome to our today's class. That means approaches and methods in English language teaching. Here you see some question as the initial stage for the brainstorming. Many of you have participated answering these questions of the initial stage. So, and I also added that uh, at present 60% of the world population are uh, multilingual person, and this multilingual person, we know that they are the person who knows more than two languages. And let me now have your attention to the last two questions. That means what is the world population and how many languages are there in this world. In this world, there are approximately 212 or 210 countries are there, roughly, according to the Google information. And there are nearly 800 crore people live in this world, and they use 3,500 languages for their communication, and it has become a scenario. And nowadays, English language learning or foreign language learning has been very important for international communication, international business, international tourism, education, and the other fields we, we feel necessary in the uh, first half of 21st century. Okay, so let's move on to our uh, uh, our second slides. We will be sharing it now. Okay, thank you all. It is the last slide. Actually, let's move on to the first slide. Okay, so to this slide, or the title of this slide, brief history of ELT, that means English language teaching. And that we had discussed a little bit earlier at the initial stage, that English language has been an international language. English language has been a global language. English language has been the foreign language in many countries across the world. And nearly two-thirds of the world population now are capable of using English language. The reasons are many. We will try to find the reasons why people are becoming multilingual or bilingual nowadays, and in which way English language got prominence in the history of English language learning and teaching. Let's move on to the second slide. We see that many universities all over the world, English language teaching has been a subject, a discipline, a module. And as I have said earlier, that nearly three-fourths of the world population, and as well as these statistics might also be true in case of uh, the subject and the universities. That means three-fourths of the world universities teach English language teaching, and there the students can learn English language uh, and other language at that universities. So how does this situation create? How did this situation create? We'll be trying to answer this question, as well as we will also be trying to analyzing the question, that is, in which situation or in which factors, that means English language learning became and promoted several methods and approaches in the world history. So that I was talking that in which situation English language has gained such kind of popularity, and in which way the methods and approaches for English language learning has come to the present scenario in the 21st century. We will be trying to have a little glimpse of that two questions in this inaugural class of this course. Okay, so let's move on to the other slides here. That is, and the gradual development and the innovations occurred in ELT, that means English language teaching, and that happened for many critics, or very broadly, we can say that many linguists had concern regarding the English language teaching through centuries, through literary histories. And for this reason, we have seen several ups and downs, several new modules, technologies, new approaches and methods have come in English language teaching here. So we see that the changes also has come in ELT approaches and methods for another reason. What is the another reason? That means through the history, through the centuries, we had been discussing that which proficiency we need. Is it the oral proficiency, or it is the reading proficiency? Is it the writing proficiency? From time to time, we have, that means the world population have got the urgency of getting refueled to new communication tools. Will it be the oral communication? Will it be the written communication? And for this reason, the language learning methodologies, the language learning pedagogies, the language learning technologies, the language learning techniques has been changed from the initial stage, and it has come to the modern English language learning and teaching platform or approaches and methods. Okay, so for these two reasons, for one reason, that is the critics concern, and the second reason, that means our necessities, that means the learner's necessities. Why we will learn a foreign language? What is my necessity? Will it be the oral communication, or will it be the written communication? Let's move on to the other slides. And critics has also mentioned that changes actually has have done in theories of nature. That means the way we will be learning French language, the way we will be learning Arabic language, that theories cannot be applied in learning Bangla language. That theories cannot be applied in learning the Tamil language. So for this reason, the theories has also been changes through the history of English language learning, or through the history of foreign language learning. That was the scenario. In this regard, the two linguists have come forward. One name is Kelly, and also another name is Howard. They came forward and they said that actually the current method of language learning, we use the methods at present that are mainly derived from the older tradition. So we can't call this tradition we use for learning foreign language at present cannot be called the new methods and approach. It is claimed by these two scholars or linguists, that is Kelly and Howard.
Sir, can you repeat? Can you repeat just last information, if you don't mind, sir?
Kelly, thank you. The Kelly 1969 and Howard 1984, they claim that we are following several methods of learning foreign language. And they said that these methods are not quite different from the older methods, though we don't know which are the older method and which are the new method. We will be learning later on. So this is their claim. And in this regard, there is no basic difference between the previous language learning approach and the present language learning method. That was claimed by these two languages. Have you got the point?
Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
And for such kind of controversies over the centuries, the history of foreign language learning and teaching, we see several controversies. And such kind of controversies, as I have said earlier, have come from the learner's point of view, from the critic's point of view, from the scholar's point of view, from the linguist's point of view. Okay, so let's see the scenario of English language teaching or the foreign language teaching. I am making the repetition of English language and foreign language in this scenario for this region, that English language has been the global language, and that we see the data, that is the roughly statistics of using English language, that there are nearly 212 countries are there in this world, and there are in those countries nearly 800 crore people live, and they use 3,500 languages. And this is the scenario. And let me put on another information, that is the for the development of international connection, for the necessity of international communication, that I have said that foreign language learning has been a necessary, a practical tool. Nowadays, if anybody says that I don't know computer, I don't have any computer literacy, we will be calling that yes, it is a technological knowledge that you can't go without. And in the same way, we can say that foreign language learning is a practical and technological knowledge, and you can't go without the knowledge of foreign language, at least more than two languages. And European Union of Language Commission has established an article that in European countries, every student, I repeat, every student has to learn more than two languages. And one language is their mother tongue, and the other language he or she will be choosing. It might be French, it might be German, it might be Chinese or something else. That means he or she has to learn more than one language. And in this regard, the language learning has become a very important and important thing nowadays. We can't go without learning a foreign language. And why this situation created? We will be trying to have a little bit glimpse on that history. Actually, before 14th century, people would march anywhere or would go anywhere else, especially with the help of their horse, with the help of their troops, the soldiers. But that scenario got changed tremendously for the discovery of America by Italian navigator Columbus. Columbus discovered America in 1492. And after 8 years, another Portuguese navigator, Vasco da Gama, discovered the waterways, the Europe, from Europe to the India. We know the history. And after 5 years later, we see the Allwright brothers, Wilbur Wright and Oliver Wright. These two brothers came up and they put and basically changes to international communication for the discovery, or no, not for the innovation of aeroplane. Okay, and that happened in 17 December 1903. So when the aeroplane, when the waterways invented or discovered, the international communication became a crucial. And that is for many reasons. At that time, we can't even know that there was a continent named America. At that time, the people, that means at the initial stage of 13th century, the people of Europe would not know that there will be a waterway in India. Of course, they would know that there is a continent in India, but there is a waterway, they would know. So just after the discovery of this uh, waterways and aeroplane, people, vast in numbers, started to move here and there. The reason, multiple reasons. But before that, what we have seen in the history, we have seen Ikhtiyaruddin Muhammad Bukhtiyar Khilji. We have seen the Crusades. We have seen the Ottoman Empire. We have seen the Alexander the Great. What did they do? They did do, that is, they had been fighting with their troops, the horseback, their mighty fighters. They would be using the sword to fight face to face because they don't have the ways, waterways. They don't have the uh, aeroplane to move here and there. And for this reason, they were circled in a narrow geographical locations. I would say before the invention of aeroplane, before the discovery of waterways done by Columbus and Vasco da Gama, European people would be living in Europe. And American continent wouldn't be in our knowledge. But after the discovery, what happened? Many voyaging countries like France, Germany, Italy, Dutch, and Great Britain as well started to move here and there. What's the purpose? The purpose is to explore the unexplored horizon of this world, to explore the unexplored continent and the parts of this world in one hand. In another hand, they started to do business. They started to have a warmer place because you know that the most European countries are winter prone. They have excessive winter in winter season, excessive cold in winter season. And for this reason, for better living, for better business, for better economy, such sea voyaging country, France, Germany, Italy, Dutch, and Great Britain started to move here and there. Okay. And in such a juncture, foreign language learning became must crucial. And in this way, English language, and that was the early stage of 16th century or the ending portion of 16th century. And now let's see that percentage, that 60% of the world population are multilingual nowadays. And from the contemporary and the historical perspectives, bilingualism and the multilingualism have become a practical concept. It's not a fashion nowadays. And I know many languages, it's a fashion. No, it is for necessity. I will be traveling over there in Switzerland. I will be traveling there in Scotland. I will be traveling there in Portuguese. So I have to know several languages. Or I have to travel many countries for the business purpose. I have to know the languages. So that is the scenario. So what happened? And next time we have seen that the teaching of English language and how it came to the present shape. That means English language teaching in the 21st century. And today, English is the world's most widely studied foreign language. A little bit, I have mentioned that nearly 3/4 of the world population know English language. And many of them use it as foreign language. Some of them use it as second language, like the people in India and the people in Singapore. They use English as a second language. Many of them use it as the international language. But some 60 years ago, the scenario of English language learning was not like this. What happened over there? At the time, Latin language was in prominence. Why? Latin language was studied as the main language of education, commerce, religion. Why? Why? Because we know that the early civilization were Greek and Rome. In which language the Greek civilization was run? That was Greek or Latin. So Latin was the language of Alexander the Great. The Latin was the language of Homer. The Latin was the language of Virgil. The Latin was the language of Cicero. So the people, the scholars, they had been using language Latin. So how to teach and how to learn language, how to learn Latin language, that was the concern of the linguist 600 years ago, or 700 or 800 years ago. Because one reason is that the people would be laughing Latin language not for Aristotle and Plato. They would be laughing Latin language. They were bound to learn Latin language because Latin at that time was the language of the ruling class. The people all over the country, they had no alternative but to learn Latin language. And in which way Latin language had been taught? That language So we were in that stage that the Latin language, why Latin language was taught. So we had also been talking that Latin language was taught for the cause of the political and the economic strength of the Latin ruling class, then the people of Roman and the Greek civilization, we know. And at that time, the people would learn through the grammatical rules.
Sir, excuse me. The slide I'm looking at, it started with the writing simple sentences.
Yeah.
Was there anything written before? Was there anything written before?
It is an image. Okay.
Oh, it's the image. Okay.
So,
sorry.
So that we were talking, that is, the Latin language was taught basically following the grammatical rules, basically for the cause of vocabulary learning, the translation from one part to another part. Okay, so that scenario was initiated from the initial stage. But when Alexander the Great failed in his political power, and then Latin became a language of less importance, people was moving to another language. And then comes the time of other languages. That means we have said the seafaring countries like France, German, Spanish, other countries also started to move other parts of this world with the Great Britain. But in the combat between the Great Britain and the French, Russian, the Great Britain was the winner class. And for this reason, many parts you will see a French existence of the French language in one hand, and we will also be noticing that the language of Brazil is Spanish. That means Spain also went there, and they had this language in their country. So in such a way, English language got prominence all over the world. But our method, our concern is what is the history then? So when Latin language gained less importance in the history, people started to move to other languages. And with the comeback of other languages, that means the comeback between the French, German, Italian, Spanish, Russian, and also the English language got prominence. And that had another reason. And that we will be discussing in any other classes next time. Especially, let me brief that England at that time, the Great Britain, was a good place for living. And for this reason, the scientists all over the world, the technologists all over the world started to move towards Great Britain, and they initiated their first invention in UK or the Great Britain. Let me give some examples of that means the electric bulb, the electric steam engine, the train, and especially for the invention or for the explored situation of telegram, radio, broadcasting, media, and film through all the subject initially started in UK. And apart from that, we also see that the many international organization started either in UK or in USA. That means United Nations. That means UNESCO. That means World Trade Organization. That means AIA. That means World Sporting Agency, World Security Agency. Everything were imbrued or started their journey either in UK or in USA. That means another English-speaking country. So our concern is that then the people all over the world living Latin language started to move towards English language learning. And in such a scenario, we see that another changes came in English language learning field. That means whether the Latin language learning technique will be followed for the English language learning. By the 19th century, this approach based on the study of Latin had become a standard way of studying foreign language in school. So towards up to the 19th century, we had been following grammar rules for learning the second language, the foreign language, especially the English language as well. So, and that method is called the grammar translation method that we use today. So in such a way, from Latin language up to the initial part of 19th century, grammar translation rules, that means learning language by studying the grammar, studying vocabulary, studying translation from one text to another text, that was the techniques of English language learning. But gradually, through the other field, we see that such kind of technological grammar translation method found some fault in language learning approach. Actually, the linguist observed that grammar translation method seeks the grammatical accuracy. So they know the grammatical accuracy point, but they don't understand or they can't make fluent communication. So they think that written communication is very much possible for grammar translation method. So many linguists started to talk about the oral communication. So they came up with other methods and approach in English language teaching. And they said that oral language is necessary. And towards the second half of the 20th century, we see that the direct method came in appearance. So what is the direct method? Direct method, that means you will be using English language in every communication. It is not, grammatical rules is not mandatory. Either the oral communication must be fluent to make an effective communication across the people living in this world place, living in this global place. That was another concern that it came from the criticism done by the linguist and scholar all over the world. In such a way, the English language method has come to exercise several approaches and methods throughout the history. From the grammatical rules, that means GTM, that is the older tradition that started its journey for learning Latin language that went up to the first half of the 19th century. And towards the second half of the 20th century, we have seen several approaches and methods we have in our hand. That means we have CLT, we have direct method, and we have also seen the natural approaches. And even after the post-method era, we have seen the natural approaches. We have seen several hypotheses done by Stephen Krashen. That means the language learning and acquisition. So in such a way, that is in brief, that is the history of English language teaching. So from the initial stage, more than 600 years ago, Latin had been changed, but next time we have seen that from the requirements of scholars, from the requirements of linguistics, and again, from the necessity of the learners, English language approaches and methods have been changed gradually. And now in the 21st century, we have seen many methods and approach we are learning. And we are learning this basically for understanding foreign language, basically for learning and teaching foreign language. So in the next class, we will be gradually moving on the other uh, parts of this class. So thank you very much for joining the class.
Sir, attendance কি নিবেন না?
Uh,